Okay, we're now recording. So today we'll do chapter 5, chapter 4 in your American Management Association book, Selection. And I want to start by talking a little bit about your midterm. So this is technically the 6th week, week 6 of the semester. This is a 16-week semester, so theoretically, the midpoint is week 8. So what I plan to do is I will give you the midterm, and I will not do it during class time. I'll put it on as a link on Blackboard, and I will make it timed. So I'll make it probably a 3-hour test. You shouldn't need 3 hours, but I'll give you that much time. And I'll give you 3 hours to do it. At the end of that 3 hours, the test automatically gets submitted. So you can do that on Blackboard. You can put a timer. So I'm going to do that for the test. My plan will be you only have 3 hours to do the test, but I'm going to give it to you on the Friday. Well, here's my plan. Tell me what you think of this. I was going to give it to you on the Friday of week 8. So let me share my screen so you can see my calendar. Okay, can you all see the calendar? Is that a yes? Yes?
So it's on the 30th?
Well, that's today, right? It's the 13th now.
Not 30th.
So, well, for me, it's the 12th, but for you, it's the 13th, for some of you. This is week 6, week 7, week 8, the Friday. So I would give it to you on the 30th of this month. And I would give you the weekend to do it. I would say it's due by midnight on the following Monday. What do you think about that? So I'll give you that. I'll put it up Friday morning. You'll have all Friday. If you want to do it on Halloween, I'm sure that's what you want to do, is dress up for Halloween and take an HRM test. And then you have all of Monday to do it. You have to get it done by Monday midnight. But you'll have 3 hours from whenever you start. Does that sound fair?
Sounds good.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's the plan. So I already have the midterm, and I can tell you right now, this is not like it's not going to surprise you. There's 5 questions. What have we done so far this semester? Let me share my screen again. What have we done so far this semester? We have done 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 2 parts. And today we're doing 5. 5 topics. That's it. That's what we've done, including today. Whatever we do next week, I shouldn't say whatever we do, but next week, I believe I will teach compensation or training. I haven't decided. So, but whatever I teach next week, no, that's not true. I can't say that. I know what I'll do next week, which is I will do training next week. So next week will be training, but that won't be on this midterm exam. Okay, it'll just be the first 5 subjects. You want to make sure that you pass. You know, these discussion questions right here are, if you have these in front of you and you pretty much know the answer, and when I say know the answer, this is an open book test. But understand, with 3 hours, if you don't know, if you have the textbook, but you don't know where in the textbook this information is, well, that's going to be very hard. But if you know, for like this is last week's discussion questions, you know, if you don't even know, you look under this and you're like, oh my God, what is HRIS? Or, oh my God, job analysis. I remember hearing that, but I forget where it is in the book. You know, then you're not going to get a good grade. But if you already have a little sticky tab, you know, that a little like a sticky tab that you put on the book or something for where job analysis is, you know, where is job description, specification, job requirements matrix, job profile, competency model. You know, yeah, there is a lot of stuff. You're not going to need to know absolutely everything. You know, I'm not going to ask you, I'm asking you 5 questions. So obviously you don't need to know 40 things, but you should pretty much, this is how you prepare, is take a look at those discussion questions and see if you have questions. Okay, so we'll still have class next week. You know, in fact, we'll have 2 more classes before you take the midterm. So in those 2 more classes, you've plenty of time to ask questions if you have questions about any of the subjects. Jody and Bella. Jody, Bella. Okay, so any questions right now before we begin on the topic or the midterm or anything like that? Nope. Okay, for those just joining us, we just talked about the midterm. I said it's going to be in 20 minutes. So, I mean, I hope you guys are ready. Ethan and Mikhail. Okay, anyway, really, for those of us joining us, we said the midterm will be a 3-hour test. I'm going to put it up on Blackboard. It'll be available on October 30th. That is the Friday of week 8. You will have until midnight the following Monday. So I'm going to give you 4 days to do it. But whenever you start it on Blackboard, you only have 3 hours. You can't start it and stop it and start it and stop it. You got 3 hours, but I'll give you this range of, you know, this Friday and Monday and a weekend to get it done. And it covers the first 5 topics, which means the introduction, all of the laws and discrimination and sexual harassment and stuff, strategy, strategic HR management, recruitment, what we did last week, and workforce projections and stuff. And then this week, selection. That's what we're doing. If we don't finish selection this week, whatever is on selection, then we'll finish it next week. Okay, so let's jump into talking about selection then.
Sir, are we going to have a review class or not?
For the midterm? I was not planning on it.
Oh, okay, okay.
I mean, you let me know, you know, next week or the week after, if you guys feel you want a review class, just let me know and we can have a review class.
All right.
I'm not against it. Okay, so now we're talking about selecting employees. So we've already done all the recruitment stuff, and you know, I will review that later. I don't want to review it today because selection is such a big topic, and I really want to see how much we can get through. And we have a presentation, actually. I forgot, we have a presentation.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you if we're still having a presentation today.
Of course we are. I just always forget. Every class I forget, and then I'm excited every time. Okay, Abigail, Constant, and Anais. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Sweet. How do I let you share? Okay, you guys can now share the screen. And we get to enjoy a presentation.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. I hope that you can hear us, and also good evening for some of you, sadly. Today with Abigail and Anais, we are going to present you several job hunting websites, as well as payment one. Besides leading you through today's issue on where to go if you're looking for a job or how to proceed to fill one. So firstly, we're going to go through the most popular job hunting websites, which are Indeed, Glassdoor, Simply Hired, LinkedIn, and further explain their various options, advantages, and differences. In order to facilitate the searching process, I applied the same job title and location to the 4 websites. That is to say, a human resources manager in San Francisco, US. Anaïs, est-ce que tu peux commencer la vidéo, s'il te plaît? So 1 second, please. So the first website I'm going to talk about is... Tu peux la share ou pas? And I'm just gonna go on and then it's gonna like play itself, I hope. So the first website that I'm gonna talk about is Indeed. And as you can see, first of all, it contains several tabs to fit each job seeker's requirements best. So for example, you have the location, the education level, the shift and schedule. You also have within the job description, so it's identification with the job title, location, salary either per hour or per year. You also have lowered the job summary about like how the employee should perform its task, function, and duties required for their jobs. There is indication on who the employee would report to and who is responsible for. You also have the job specification with the education, the background, the experiences, the knowledge of. For example, he will have to have the knowledge of principles and practices of public personal administration. There is also the ability to, so the ability to plan, assign, supervise, review, and evaluate the work of professional. And the thing that is really good with Indeed is like there is also, in addition to it, details about the application, the selection, and pre-employment processes, which are like could be very helpful for the future employee to prepare themselves to the interview or the pre-employment process. The thing that is really good with Indeed is the tab company review, because if you it allows the employee for a better understanding of the company. So you have companies hiring right now, the popular companies, the top rated workplace. And for example, I'm going to show how it looks like for FedEx. So you have the work happiness with the work happiness score, the purposes and the achievement are like above average. You also have indication about the company, the CEO when it was funded, the job that they're vacant right now. There's also the salaries depending on your job titles, the benefits that are offered by the company, the rate overview 3 years, and the goal is the personal review of employees, which are saying if it's a good place to work, a bad place to work, and so on. Glassdoor has the same features and information about the work description and specification as Indeed, but is added to it the rating highlights, which is very helpful because it provides a more insightful view of the company with the compensation and benefits, the culture values, the career opportunities, and work-life balance that could be very important for like the employee. There is also the working condition in Glassdoor that are not necessarily and often put it on Indeed. And there is also information about the companies and salaries alike in Indeed. Then the third website is Simply Hired. It provides also job description and specification similarly to Indeed and Glassdoor. And a job seeker could also search for a job by doing a skill research. And the drawback on this website is the absence of details and review about the company, like in Indeed or Glassdoor. And the last one is LinkedIn. It could be presented as part of a social media platform and a job hunting website, because there is the job description and specification, but they're less precise than in the previous website, but is none of the less professionally listed. However, what truly differentiated LinkedIn from the other website is the contact rubric that is allowed the job seeker to have a direct look for a person to talk to about the job, the career insight, the internship, and more. And also allowed the job seeker whose LinkedIn profile is well established, of course, to extend its professional contact list. There is also a last very nice features, that is the e-learning rubric, where the future employee or job seeker can experience employees or professional that are like teaching or helping to enhance the competencies and skill of the concerned party. And you can, of course, you have to pay for the classes, but it can be very helpful if you want to talk about the benefits, to learn more about communicating employee rewards, or to help employees through their problem. Now I'm going to give the floor to Anaïs.
Right, so now I'm going to talk about where employers post their job openings. So the most popular ones, like Lota said, were Indeed, Glassdoor, and the third one I found was Google Careers. And basically for Google Careers, it's kind of limited because you can only apply for jobs at Google specifically. But what's interesting about it is you can apply for any job at any Google depending on where you are. And Indeed and Glassdoor basically function the same way. So I decided to just talk about Indeed a little bit more in detail. So how Indeed functions for employers is basically you type what kind of skill or job that you need and where your company is based, and it will give you a list of applicants. And then you can, classify the people that have applied to your company. So you have here like the unread candidates, the activity interviews that you've conducted, and then you have stats on the employees that you've seen, you haven't seen, the ones you don't like, the ones you've hired, the ones you've rejected and stuff. Cool features about Indeed include that they allow testing directly on the app or the website. If you want your job to be seen by more people, you can have it sponsored as a job ad. It provides a super wide reach because it's the #1 website used for job hunting. And also over 300, a lot of companies are registered to it. So here are what the tests look like, because I found that super interesting once I was applying for a job on Indeed and they had me do a quiz. So that's how they work. You basically have a question, for example, like this one, and you have to choose the right answer, and you have a certain time frame to answer the questions. And they don't really give you a feedback or answer right away. They kind of just take the answers, and then if they like you, they contact you, and if they don't, they don't. So the tests are all given by Indeed. So they come on the Indeed website, and they're all made by professionals. So you have all types of tests. You have cognitive and psychometric tests, computer skill tests, job skill tests, and these are huge. So they have like subcategories as well. So like project management. So you need like budget management skill test, or delivery driver vehicle maintenance test, or language tests. These are very common, especially in Canada, because they want most applicants to be able to speak French and English. So they will have you pass a lot of language tests. But then I decided to talk about job opportunities for students, because I think it might be more interesting for us to know about companies that really hire students for either internships or full-time jobs. So the first one is Handshake, and Handshake is very formal, I think, compared to the other one, because it's for more important jobs. I'll show you later. So it provides job and internship for students at your school. So from your school, you can know like what kind of internships are available. You can connect with alumni or other, student organizations. You can have, what's interesting about it, just like Indeed, you have reviews, but there's student reviews about the company, about the employers, people you work with, the workplace, all of that. And they also have student blogs and career tips, where they kind of help you build up your career and how to do better at an interview or anything like that. So these are the companies that usually hire using Handshake. It's like pretty intense. So serious inquiries only. Yeah, so these are very big companies, obviously, so you need to be very serious. Then for the employers, the way they look for students is basically like you have to type what kind of skill you're looking for, what kind of position you want to fill. And on the website, they dedicated a lot of their time to diversity and inclusion, like articles to help employers make better choices and have a more diverse workplace. They have a very integrated selection process. So basically, once a company selects you, they have a whole database of people that have matched with their job. It's kind of like social media, kind of like Tinder. You can match with someone, and then you can follow them as well. You have matches, people that have liked your job but haven't replied, but haven't applied, and also you can reconnect with candidates, like if you want to offer them a full-time job. All of this is still on the website, and they also have built-in video sessions and texting sessions so that you can have a full interview right there on the website. And the next one is Chegg Internships, and Chegg is not really a hiring website. If you want, it's a student website, and it offers also internships, and these internships are more are less formal than Handshake. So basically, you can type in by keyword what kind of things you're looking for, or you can just go over here and type in your major, type in what you're good at, what do you like to do, and what salary you're expecting. So you can like select by different criteria. It doesn't always have to be just your major. And then they have this really interesting thing called the Career Center, where they help you become a better student to get better internships. So you can buy and sell, rent books. You can have question and answer sessions with experts on whatever topic you want to talk about. Mostly for studies though. And then you have textbook solutions for math questions or any other kind of uh, study question you may have. You can get help with writing assignments and math assignments. So for the writing, you can have like expert check your writing. They want to make sure that everyone writes their own paper, but you can have expert check it for you. And then you can go on the math part of the website and type in equations, and they help you solve them and explain them and stuff. And you can also find or become a tutor on this website. So now I'm going to pass the communication to Abby.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about the best payment website for salary based on job titles. So before I do that, I'll tell you why you need to like research on your salary based on your job title before you go for a job. So salary research can give you a better idea of the right numbers to shoot for and what increase you can expect as you advance in your career. Okay, so the two best payment websites for average salary negotiation based on job titles. One is salary.com. Salary.com, the most popular salary specific job site. Salary.com lists every job position and field with free salary information. And salary.com doubles as a career site, providing salary and specific job titles and advice for those on the lookout. Overall, this is probably the best site for salary information. The second one is Salary Expect. On Salary Expect, data is updated daily. Salary Expect offers not only free salary reports, but cost of living analysis and career salary potential. You can also research job by salary if you're thinking about switching job fields. So in addition to what I did, I added what you should consider before checking for job salary and specific job titles. Firstly, you need to bear in mind that the site will only allow you to search based on these things. So one, no, please, can you go back to yeah, thank you. Job titles. Job titles reflect responsibility and experience. While some companies allow you a little latitude in naming your job, others won't be so flexible. So make sure you are clear on the responsibilities of the titles you want. And then the second one is experience. Work experience in your field can increase your value and salary. Internships may count in your favor. They depending on your responsibilities there. And the last one is education. Having a degree period, an associate, a bachelor's, or an advanced degree should boost your salary expectations. Having a degree in your field is even much more better. So these are the things you should consider before checking for a salary based on specific job titles. Yeah, thank you.
Good. Nice. One of you, please. Oh, no, you can't email that to me, can you? Because part of it was a video. Well, whatever you have, if you have something, please email it to me. But good. Hope you guys actually wrote down some of that stuff. That is very useful information, especially Chegg. I've never heard of that.
That was like, okay.
Sorry?
Oh, no, I was just saying that I feel like Chegg, well, I use Chegg for like I'm sorry, but I use it for like some exams in my before school. You can use it for like exams, and you can find like books there. And if you have a question that you don't understand, you can copy and paste the question on Chegg, and then it will give you the same question with like different answers.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's not just an internship website. It's like a
No.
Craigslist for students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Anything that helps. Okay, don't use Chegg during our exam. Okay. Next week, how about I just saw Bella. Bella, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
How about Bella, Ethan, and Jody? How's that sound?
I have done it.
Do I do it
Did it
twice?
already?
Distinct.
Oh, you're right, you did it. Jody, you did it. Ethan, did you do it already?
Yeah, I did the first week. Yes.
Oh, I must not have it on this.
Yeah, I did it
Can-
already.
can-
I did it with one, and yeah, I
Is
did
it
it the first
okay
week.
if
Stop whining.
Camila is also,
I'm
because
sorry?
we two are kind of, can you please include Camila as well? She couldn't attend the class today, but we're kind of in the same group.
Okay, so Bella, Camila, where's Camila? Okay, Bella, Camila, and who else hasn't done it right now? Here. The rest of you guys, you all done it?
I still haven't.
Okay, so how about Bella, Camila, Chloe?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay, you guys will have a little benefit because you are still doing something that is before the midterm. So what I want you guys to research, and I'll show you the slide about it, is called Projective Personality Tests. Oh, actually, before I do that, I just looked at my notes, and it looks to me like we did not finish part 4.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, but I thought you just wanted to finish it alone.
Alone, like me alone, teaching myself. Oh,
Watch the video.
I enjoy sharing with everybody. So, okay, just for next week, what I want you to do is, did I put it here? Projective personality tests. So for next week, write that down. Bella, Camila, Chloe. You guys are going to discuss, oh God, I wrote that wrong. It's not perceptive. Projective personality tests and the GCI. All of this stuff is in the videos for part 5. So I want you to explain those. And the slide is here, you know, we'll be talking about it. I don't know if we'll get to it this week, but that'll be good because you'll explain it to everybody next week.
Was it?
Here it is. Here's some examples of projective personality tests.
And then okay.
Okay, Anais, I don't know how we can
Oh,
hear you.
Oh,
Or
sorry.
whoever's talking. Oh, that's Abigail, maybe? Okay. Okay, so yeah, these are the projective personality tests. So you don't have to explain every single one, you know, but just give us an idea of what projective personality tests are and the GCI, explain those. Okay, now let's then continue with last week's topic, which was workforce planning and recruiting. Okay, so last week we started by talking about the idea that there are 9 steps in recruitment, and we definitely want to do this because, as I said, these first 4 subjects are all on the midterm exam. So this stuff is definitely on the midterm exam because recruitment is a really important subject. Now, we don't want to dismiss what we did last week, which was the beginning of recruitment, and that involves really understanding the job. You really can't do any sort of recruiting if you don't really understand the job. So last class, we talked about the idea of creating a job analysis, job description, job specification, job requirements matrix, and competency model. So all of those 4 things should be clear to you. So now, once we have that, we start with the planning and recruiting. So number 1, workforce or succession planning, we did talk about last week. So what's the difference between workforce and succession? Anybody know? What is the difference between workforce planning and succession planning? Any thoughts?
Succession planning is workforce planning for executive jobs.
Correct. So succession is planning for executive jobs. So if a vice president leaves, if a senior manager leaves, if a department head leaves, then you really want to know who's going to replace them. Workforce planning is the same thing, but it's just for every job. If a teacher leaves, if a salesperson leaves, you want to have an idea of how you're going to replace them. Okay, so we talked about that last week. It's the process of reviewing what positions we have to fill and how we're going to fill them. And when it's for executive jobs, we're talking about succession planning. Next is forecasting. And we talked about this last week also. And we said there are really 3 kinds of forecasting. There's trend, ratio, and a scatter plot. So trend is just looking at the past to predict the future. If you need 10 new salespeople every month, then, and that's for the last 5 years, then you're probably going to need that next month too. Ratio is looking at 2 factors, right? Or 1 factor, a causal factor like the season or the sales volume. Every time sales hit 100 units, we need to hire a salesperson. So now we've 300 units, we probably need 3 salespeople. And a scatter plot is 2 causal factors. For the example we saw was the hospital, where we had the number of nurses and the number of beds. Those are 2 different factors. And based on those, we plot different hospitals, and then we get sort of a plan that we can forecast. Okay, and then we talked about a qualifications inventory. So this is an inventory. It could be on the computer. These days it usually would be. In the past, it was note cards that would have data about each employee. And of course, these days it's all computerized to tell us which people are ready to be promoted and everybody's age and background and their performance and stuff like that. And that's pretty much where we got to last week. Now, the next thing to talk about is, one other thing was a personnel replacement chart. And that was the idea of having also nowadays it's on the computer. In the past, it was a card. And so the difference is a qualifications inventory is about each employee, information on the person, where a personnel replacement card is information on the job. So the job description, the specification, who could be moved into that position. So if we're looking for the new sales manager, we might have the job description, job specification, competency model, job requirements matrix, and a list of names of people we think could move into that position, but they might need more training or more experience or whatever. Okay, so now we get into why is recruiting so important and how do we recruit people? So the first step, obviously, in filling a job is to develop this pool of applicants. The more people you have, the more selective you can be if you want to be very selective and give a lot of tests, for example. And we want to make sure that we're always using strategy, like we talked about in our third lesson. Now, when we say using strategy, like what does that mean? What does that mean, Harry? When we say we want to reflect the company's strategic plan, what are we talking about here?
Just to like implement a plan. Does it mean?
But that's not our job. We're in HR. I mean, that's the management's job to implement the plan. What's our job in HR?
To like recruit and I'm not sure, to be honest.
Okay, well, recruiting is part of it, definitely. Part of our job in HR is recruiting people, you know, and you could say the whole process, hiring people, right? Recruiting, selecting, that's part of our job. What else is our job in HR?
To manage employees or?
Sure. I mean, all aspects of dealing with employees pretty much is our job. So Anais, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Our job in HR is to deal with employees, right? To hire them, to deal with them, all of that stuff. How is that related to the company's strategic plan?
Well, you need the right people to be able to achieve your goals.
That's exactly right. That's pretty much what I'm looking for, right? So when we say strategic plan, if CIP's goal is we want to move towards fashion design, well, you need the right people to do that. If our goal is we don't care about fashion, we want to move toward entrepreneurship, well, you need the right people to do that. If our goal is we don't care about that stuff, we want to move towards CSR and making a positive social impact, okay, you need the right people to do that. Whatever the goal of the company is, the employees are what's going to help you meet that goal. So when we say the strategic plan, that's exactly what we're talking about, is hiring the people who can help you achieve your goal. And that's why it's so important, because for all of the leads generated, right, you might have 1,200 people who apply to the job. You can generally figure that for every 6 people who apply or who you find out, only one of those people might be invited to apply. So, you know, if you're going through recruiters, you're going on a job website. So if you put your job on Indeed, you might hit 20,000 possibilities. Well, only 1/6 of those might actually be invited. And out of those, only 3/4 might actually be interviewed. Out of the ones interviewed, only 2/3 might actually get offers. And of those, only half of the people might be hired. So out of 1,200 people, you might hire 50. And that's, you know, a high number. So we call this the yield pyramid. But the idea is you're going to have to potentially look at a lot of people to really find the right person. So where do we find these people from? And we just talked about some internet sources, but that's external. Let's talk about internal first. Internal recruiting is always something we want to look at. So if we wanted to replace, you know, mailing, or we wanted to replace Simon, or we wanted to replace someone at CIP, it would always be good first to look at the staff that they have at Donghua. Right? The people at Donghua have worked there. They know Shanghai. They know the environment. They know the students. Why do an external search throughout China when you might have dozens of suitable candidates who already work there? And so what they would want to do is they would want to make sure that they have like a job board. I consider this to be one of the most important things. So right now, if you work at Donghua, whether you're a secretary or you work in HR or you're a teacher or whatever you do at Donghua, if you want to look for other jobs at Donghua, the question is, can you? Right? Most companies, most schools do have on their webpage an employment button where you can look for job opportunities, and we would call that a job board. It's very, very important that companies look internally. This says external, but the job board is internal. I should change that. For external recruiting, that's where we're talking about everything we just learned about. And so that's good because this is stuff you can talk about on your midterm also. All of these different things are different kinds of ways to use the internet. The hidden job market. The hidden job market is informal. Just, asking around, going to different places, talking to people. That's very informal. After the internet, and it wasn't mentioned in today's presentation, but certainly people use social media. What's an advantage of using Facebook? Nicola, what do you think is an advantage of advertising a job on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or Snapchat?
I would say two things. One is you can achieve people directly and more spread. And another thing is maybe you could have some recommendation. I don't know.
Sure. What do you mean by recommendations?
It's not what I'm saying, like, for example, if I work for you, you work in the company and I work for you, I'm your or personal friend. So people can see, oh, Nicola knows David, they are friends. Oh, that's good. David works here, creating
Sure.
connection or something.
Sure. So that's informal. That's informal recruiting, that you're just going to help me find people, right? And we did say, remember, in our second lesson on law, that we need to be a little careful of that to make sure we are targeting diversity. So there are lots of benefits to advertising on social media. You do get you cast a very wide net. There's so many people who are going to see it. What are some of the problems? It's so not targeted. Anybody's going to see it, and you really might get a lot of people who apply for the job and they don't have the qualifications at all. But it depends on the job you're looking for. If you're looking just for a lot of people to do something fairly simple, it could be very effective to advertise on Facebook. So that's pretty much, it's not really complicated, this internal versus external idea, right? Internal, we're talking about hiring people who already work for your organization. External, we're talking about websites. We're talking about people, friends of people. We're talking about going to job fairs, recruiting on the internet, using social media. That's really all we're talking about. Now, of course, you could also do some additional, let's jump forward, things like employment agencies. That's external also. So employment agencies, you give them the information on the job, and they have a group of people that they already have sometimes tested. They've already tested them for certain job skills, such as typing or filing, and then you don't have to do the tests. So there are definitely benefits to using different kinds of employment agencies. Employment agencies can also be very specialized. So there are legal employment agencies for lawyers or part-time attorneys. There are public, there's private, there's nonprofit, there's accounting, there's medical, there's all kinds of administrative, there's all kinds of employment agencies. And so if you're looking for someone specific with certain skills, it can be very beneficial to look at employment agencies. Now, once you get the people together, then we're talking about using applicant tracking. So an applicant tracking system is a kind of software that helps you to screen people and to keep track of all these people. So their information, their interviews, then you can search based on skills. This is just making sure that, now, if you have a small company and you want to interview 20 people and hire one person, you don't need some sort of internet system. But if you get a job as a manager for like a Chinese company and they have 50 employees, and when they look for a new candidate, they get hundreds of applications, a lot of them don't use an applicant tracking system, and they should. So this would be beneficial if you get a job as a manager to understand that when they're hiring people, these are, you can use them for free. There are also obviously paid alternatives. So once you have all of this, you know about the job analysis, the description, the specification, all that stuff. You know that. You've done your workforce planning. So you know about how many people you need to hire, who is available. You've done your forecasting. You know who you're going to hire. You have your plan of where you're going to look for candidates, internal and external. Now what you need to do is you need to design the advertisement. That's the next thing to do. So what makes an advertisement good? What makes an advertisement effective? And is that the same thing that makes it authentic? So what do you think? Chloe, what makes an advertisement good or effective?
I think that an effective advertisement either is super wide or either super targeting on like a type of people. And most of the time, these advertisements need to mean something to people in order to stay in their mind.
So it should be meaningful, or it should be memorable, is what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can anybody tell me an advertisement that they remember?
Yeah, I can.
What's an advertisement you remember?
It was for a French brand for a bottle of water. And the advertisement was kind of simple, just super fun, and I always remember it. Okay. And it's been like at least 5 years it went out.
Okay. Constance, are there any advertisements you think were particularly memorable? Remember, we're trying to talk about an advertisement for a job, not a product. Right? We're not talking about TV advertisements for McDonald's or something. We're talking about job advertisements. So can anybody remember a job advertisement that you once saw that was memorable? Usually the answer is no.
No.
Most job advertisements are not very good in that sense, right? They say the job, that's it. They're not funny or interesting or memorable, but that's what makes a product advertisement good. So this could be a way you would advertise. Generally, we want to make sure that all the information is clear and simple. That's important. What about this idea of authentic? What does that mean? Mikhail, you here?
Yes, I am.
Authentic. What does it mean, to make something authentic?
Means that the values that the advertisement is trying to kind of get to the viewer are real?
Real, okay, but aren't all jobs real? And they're not fake jobs.
Authentic, I mean, they're not like lying about what the job is.
Okay.
They're not like putting in pretty colors or sugarcoating it.
Okay, so that's a better way to say it. They're not sugarcoating it, right? So they're trying to make it honest. That would be another word for authentic. We want advertisements to be both good and honest. So in this case, this is their idea. I don't really agree, but this is their idea of an effective ad, right? Do you want us to help make this world, make this a better world? To me, that's not very authentic, right? So if you are a process engineer to join their team with a wastewater treatment company, I'm not sure it's about, the world, it's about water. And if I was writing this advertisement, I would try to write what it's about, right? So and they say it again, a dedication to make this a better world. To me, that's the kind of thing that's not really authentic. Now, this one isn't very good, although it's nice that it says the payment right up front. That's nice. It says the location. That's not bad. It says the job. It says the requirements, and that's good. But it's just not memorable. I disagree with their characterization. I think this one is better probably than this one, because this is kind of like too many words and it's not authentic. But this idea of authenticity is a fairly modern idea, that you should be honest about what the job is and that you should have some fun with it. So generally, I would ask you guys to write a little advertisement. We don't have a lot of time, but it's kind of fun. Oh, we don't really have a lot of time. I'd say let's keep going. Generally, I would say, what's a terrible job that you hate? What would be a terrible job? And let's try to make an honest, authentic advertisement. No, I want to do it. It'll only take 2 minutes. It's fun. Think of a job that's terrible. Chandra, what's a terrible job? What's the worst job in the world?
I don't think there is the worst job.
For you, the worst job for you.
Maybe cleaning the bathroom.
Okay, great. What's Abigail? What's a terrible job for you?
Well, I think that terrible job has to do with the mindset, because you know why? Let me explain to you. So recently,
I don't want to know why.
No, let me tell you, I just got a job recently, right? And then my boss is so tough, but then the job is good. But then I will consider that as a terrible job. So the job is good, but my boss makes it so difficult.
The number one reason that people quit jobs is a bad relationship with the boss.
Yeah, but he's so strict. Like, it's really, I got sick and he didn't even ask me why. Like, it was so bad. But anyway, yeah. So I find that terrible.
So just your answer would be having a terrible boss. But really, I want to know a bad job. I'm going to put you in breakout groups for like 2 minutes. Pick a terrible job and make an advertisement for it. I'll put you in 3 groups. Yeah. Okay. Go into your rooms. Choose a terrible job. Make a very quick advertisement for it. What's a terrible job?
McDonald's.
Okay. Make an honest, just give me a couple sentences. Make an honest advertisement for McDonald's.
Where you have to kill out animals.
What's the job?
Kill animals?
Like a slaughterhouse, like working in a slaughterhouse.
Slaughterhouse would be a tough job.
Yeah.
Yes.
That would be hard.
That would be very hard.
That would be hard, yeah. Okay, make an honest, give me just a couple sentences, make an honest job interview, a job advertisement for a slaughterhouse. Okay, tell me, what's a terrible job?
Professional cat food testing.
Professional cat food tester. Is that a job?
You're right.
Okay. Okay. Does somebody really do that? Is that a real job?
Let me look it up.
I would think they would test it on cats.
I think so too.
That's how you know if it's good cat food.
What about mining?
I don't even know what the job was. All you said is I hate the boss. I don't even know what job it was.
No,
it's a real job? Okay. It's a real job. Professional cat food tester. Good. There's the job. So I want you to tell me 1 or 2 sentences. What would be an authentic, honest advertisement for that?
Okay. Do you have?
It's not quiet at all.
So I don't know, like you can work on like efficiency, you will know like how to get good reflexes. So I don't know, like free food for you.
Are you talking about McDonald's?
Yes.
Oh, that is not authentic. It's not authentic at all. You'll get good.
How you can be authentic
No, you
about
get the
stuff
free
and
food
know it's bad.
actually.
Would you say in your opinion, all the people who work at McDonald's have fantastic reflexes because they've learned that there?
Yes, some of them, yes. Some of them, yes.
Like they learn to be quick and responsive to like, I don't know, everything. This is true. Like at least.
This is true.
They're sleeping
They
with
can
that
withstand
sleep
stress.
first,
I know
but I
that.
don't know.
They're really good towards like stress management.
Yeah, exactly.
Are they?
Fast-paced
Yeah.
environment.
I mean,
always
yeah,
important
working
to-
fast food, it's terrible. I mean, you'd kill yourself if
I
you didn't
think
have good stress
yeah.
management.
Wait, when you say they're good at stress management, you mean the people there are good?
Yes.
You just mean
but
it's a stressful
the job
job.
also makes you like you have to.
Yeah, but how can we sell something like that? I don't know, like I would feel bad to put an advertisement for job on McDonald's.
Would you rather be disingenuous? Which means not quite
Yeah.
telling the truth. So most advertisements are going to say, hey, work at McDonald's. You will have this wonderful training in reflexes, and you will learn how, work in a fast-paced, exciting environment where you meet hundreds of people every day.
No, that's wait. They put it.
ridiculous.
They put it in
You're selling them
advertisement
very well,
in
David.
France about McDonald's, and they were saying that you have a huge opportunity to grow in the job. That the environment was good, and it's like teaches you like how to learn skills. I remember in France they put it in advertisement
Yeah,
like that.
but
on
this is
McDonald's.
not true.
Yeah, it's
But
not
that-
One
true.
in
Yeah.
a
I mean, that's
thousand
the
becomes a
problem.
manager.
Okay, no, wait. McDonald's actually has an excellent management training program, but you're correct that the numbers are very low, but that's because their turnover is so high.
It's exactly. There's so many young people or just
Yeah.
workers coming through the system that, yeah.
But if you're someone who starts out with almost no job skills, you can actually go from working at McDonald's to being a manager, and then eventually they can give you loans to open your own franchise because they have Hamburger University.
That's super.
Yeah,
smart.
this is true. This is true.
Hamburger University is a real awesome name for a thing.
Starbucks did the same. Amazon will start too.
I'm closing the rooms now.
N'importe.
All right, I want to hear an advertisement for McDonald's. Give me something. Give me something for McDonald's.
You have a huge opportunity of growth and development of reflexes, skills, like how to work. I don't
So
know.
not
under pressure.
authentic.
What's the truth though?
You could
This
say,
is-
come and be parts of our great and friendly team and
Oh,
have many
this is not
opportunities to
true.
grow.
You guys are-
And,
you're
You
completely
get to meet
misunder-
and interact. You get to meet and interact with people all day long.
You guys are misunderstanding what authentic means, I think.
No, I think the McDonald's thing.
I mean,
But
it's not a
the
lie.
truth is that you just make fast food all day long.
That's
You
authentic.
take a room,
Yeah.
you cook some fries, some steaks. You just
So
Don't need
An
experience
authentic-
and don't need education, high level of education.
Okay, so an authentic advertisement for McDonald's might say something like repetitive job in a high stress environment in the fast food industry, no education required, very real opportunity for growth. That's honest. Now, the direction of advertising in today's world is moving towards this honesty by recognizing that young people today, the sort of Gen Z or the people who were born in the aughts, you can't fool them anymore. They've been raised, you guys have been raised with social media. I mean, there's no point in being dishonest. Everybody knows it, and it's almost offensive. We live in a world where everybody can see through the facade, the BS. So companies are moving in the direction of being just a little bit more honest about what it is. What was the second groups? Oh, was that the slaughterhouse? Yeah, give me an advertisement for killing cows and sheep and stuff in a slaughterhouse.
It's very hard, but we're looking for people who are open-minded and no fear of blood and killing animals. We didn't know about the growing aspect of it, and there's no experience required. Yeah, what about Nicola? What do you think?
Yeah. In addition, we don't need to experience people, so we will do the training to them to make
I
them
hear
more
that. I can accept that.
comfortable with the situation. We must focus on candidates that have no problem with law.
Here, I got it. 7 words. Kill cows, earn money, no experience required.
Good one.
Boom. That's
Fair enough.
honest. All right, what's the third group?
cat food.
Oh yeah, a cat food tester. Okay, what's your what's
Ever
your
wondered what exactly
advertisement?
cats are eating? Do you have a strong sense of smell? And are you interested in free cat food for the rest of your life? If so, come down and work for us, where you can make as much as $34,000 a year. And
That's
disclaimer,
not a
they
good salary for eating cat food.
pooping out cat food, and opportunity for innovation in the cat food industry.
That's a tough one. Want to eat cat food for a low salary? Yeah, $34,000 is not enough to eat cat food. I mean, it's okay, but it's not good money to eat cat food. All right. The point here is authenticity. You know, that groups or companies are moving in that direction. Okay. We talked about employment agencies, offshoring, outsourcing jobs. That's, you know, possible too. There's not too much more to say about this that we didn't really say in the video. College recruiting, you talked about in the video in your presentation. Internships, you talk about in your presentation. Yeah, I mean, that's all good. So the next thing to talk about would be diversity, targeting a diverse workforce. So what does diversity mean? Let's make sure we understand this concept of what is diversity. So typically, and you know, if you studied OB with me, then you would have a better understanding of the difference between deep level and surface level diversity. But there are two kinds of diversity. There's the diversity that you can pretty much see. You know, after maybe a week of working with someone, you could see they're a different race or ethnicity or height or weight or age or all of those things you can see. And so when we talk about targeting diversity, some of that is what we're talking about, you know, targeting minorities, and you can advertise on websites or social media or magazines or online magazines that sort of are targeted towards minorities, or ones that are for women, ones that are for older workers, ones that are for the disabled. There are websites and magazines for each group. Targeting single parents is another kind of diversity. Then there's more of the deep level diversity, diversity that has to do with things you can't see, such as IQ, EQ, personality, things like that. An example was Google's math poster. They had a poster in subway stations, and on the poster was a math equation. And if you solve the equation, you get a phone number. And if you call the phone number, that's your first round of interview with Google. So they did this very creative way to test people's math skills. So that's an interesting way. How would you target different personality types? If you wanted to find someone who's very outgoing, how would you target people like that? Any thoughts? Ethan, if I wanted to target people who are just really outgoing and extroverted, how would I do that?
I would really either, I guess, for an advertisement, like maybe advertise in places where many people gather, that there is a more social aspect, because I don't think many introverts would kind of, if they go there, they're not going to be really looking for those kind of advertisements, or just be kind of put off by that kind of thing. And then in your actual job kind of descriptions, just really highlight how much you're going to be working with people. You have to talk and interact with people, and just make it very clear that there is a lot of interaction and extroverts are going to succeed more.
Okay, so you can put it in social places. That's possible.
Yeah.
Generally, for something like that, for personality, that's where we are going more towards testing, right? We can test people for personalities. And so there's less of us having an ability in HR to target personalities. But I agree with you that we could go, you wouldn't want to put this up in a library. You might rather put it up in a bar or a club or some social hotspot. Sure. Okay, so once we are recruiting, now we already have our workforce planned. We've done our forecasting, our succession planning. We know how we're going to advertise internally and externally. We've created our advertisement. We've thought about diversity. Now we're ready to start making our application forms, because now people, we're going to put our advertisement out there. People are going to contact us, whether it's phone or email or whatever, and we need them to fill out forms. So let's talk a little bit about having these forms. Well, what's the purpose of having these forms? One is their identity. One is their work history. Generally on forms, as you might have seen in your own life, we ask people to give us a resume and to fill out the form. Sometimes the information is repeated, right? And the reason we do that online is so it is searchable, right? If we want to search by past experience, we want to search by university, we want to make sure this stuff is on the system. We want to ask them about their education or their experience. We want to know maybe a little about their stability, how many jobs have they had over the years. We want to check their references. So these are the kind of things we want to predict their future performance. These are the reasons we have an application form. Things we need to be careful of in the application form. We can't discriminate. So remember, discrimination is not just about who you hire. It's about everything. Before they get the job, during the job, after the job, from the interview phase, from the application forms, from that point, from the advertisements, you can't be discriminatory. So be careful of asking about education or about an arrest record. Be careful of asking about membership in organizations. You cannot ask about this unless it's related to the job. Professional organizations are fine, but you can't say like, are you a member of the Communist Party or something like that in America, unless it's related to the job. You can't really ask about physical handicaps. You can't ask about marriage. You can't ask about housing. Video resumes are an interesting idea. So with a video resume, the benefit is you can see the person, but the problem is then because you can now see the person. So in China, many resumes have a photograph. In the West, that is very uncommon, very rare for a resume to have a photograph. So usually you don't know this person's race unless you can tell from their last name or something like that. So generally you don't know. And with a video resume, of course, you do know. And so that opens you up to charges of discrimination. Okay, so now that you've done your application form, we get really to the last step. And the last step is the interview, which we also talk about in the next part in section 5. So we're going to talk about the interview sort of 2 times. First, we're going to talk about some, really these 3 parts, because we're talking about recruiting people and being ready for this whole process. So 1, you need to become familiar with the job. What does it mean to be familiar with the job? Job analysis, job description, job specification. Again, the job analysis is going to come back when we talk about training. We'll talk about job analysis again. The job analysis is going to come back when we talk about compensation. It's going to come back again when we talk about evaluation. The job analysis is absolutely critical to HR. We really can't do anything unless we have a very clear job analysis. So when we're talking about an interview, though, we need to know some very specific things. Of course, we need all the job analysis information, the duties and responsibilities, what education is required, what prior experience is required. We get all of this from the job analysis. Then also we need to know things like your job specification stuff, your personality. What is the best kind of temperament or creativity or management style? That's important. As Abigail just said, she had a job where her boss had a very specific management style. And it would have been nice, I'm sure, if when they hired her, they had said, hey, just so you know, if you want to succeed in this job, your manager has this particular style. They're loud, they're aggressive, they can be angry. There's nothing wrong with being honest, you know, because the kind of person who is not going to fit there should know that. And that's, again, this idea of authenticity. Another thing you should know about the job if you're interviewing is reporting relationships. So there are two kinds of reporting. One is between positions and one is between people. So between positions, you know, what positions report to your job? So if I'm hiring you to be the division manager, maybe the employees report to you or the section managers report to you. And then who do you report to? Maybe you report to the department manager, or you report to the regional manager. You know, what is the relationship in terms of the level of responsibility? Are you at the third level out of 10? Are you at the third level out of 5? Are you at the third level out of 3? You know, where are you in this organization hierarchy? You really should know that. And then between individuals, what are the actual styles of the person who will be in charge of you? What are they looking for in an employee? This is really critical because this is authentic. You know, a lot of jobs will hire someone who they say is right for the job. But as I said, studies have shown that the #1 reason people leave jobs, and we saw this in last week's video, people are usually hired based on their skills. They're usually fired or they leave, not because their skills weren't good enough, but because of communication problems. So communicating with the manager, communicating with your coworkers, that's really where the problems are. Okay. Other things you should probably know if you're interviewing: what kind of environment will it be? Is it uncomfortable? Is it noisy? Exemption status for the FLSA, is it exempt or not exempt? And any sort of union status. You should always, when you're interviewing people, know about the salary and the benefits. And interviewers should generally prepare like a 1-minute little speech about what benefits there are in a job. You know, you can always tell if you go for an interview and they don't discuss the benefits at all. That really doesn't, that's not great. I mean, that's not a great sign if the HR doesn't discuss benefits at all. And then finally, growth opportunities, right? These are all the things we want them to discuss. Second thing you'd want to be ready for in the interview process. You understand the job. Now, have you looked carefully at the employment application? I don't know if you guys have had this experience because you are young and you might not have had many jobs yet, but a lot of times when you go for a job, they have your resume and they'll look at your resume and then ask you questions that are obvious. So you went to school in Boston, it's obvious. And it's very frustrating when you gave them a resume and you typed out all of your application information and then you go for the interview and they're not ready. That's a bad sign for HR. If you go and they're looking at your resume and they say, okay, let me see, oh, okay, like they're just reading it for the first time. That's not great. You know, you really want them to be more prepared than that. So you want to make sure when you're doing HR that you have looked at the employment application before the interview, that you've reviewed it. And we're looking for a bunch of different things. We're looking at the structure of it, the form. Is it nice to look at? Is it easy to read? Is the English correct, or whatever language? Are there any blanks or omissions, like this person did not work for 3 years? You know, why? That's a gap between jobs, for example. Or an overlap in time. It says they had 2 different jobs at the same time. Why or how? Inconsistencies. So someone who has a PhD but works at McDonald's, there's nothing wrong with asking why. That's not consistent. Frequency of job changes. Salary requirements. What are they asking for? Why have they left previous jobs? And anything that gives you a feeling that something's a little bit wrong here. Anything like that, it's important to review the application and kind of plan what you're going to ask first. And then step 3 is to plan your questions. So you want to limit yourself to about 6 questions during an interview. If the first question is an open question, like please describe your job, then that can give you an opportunity to use their answer to sort of target the next questions. But we always want to prepare some questions for our interview. So we've already decided maybe how we're going to recruit people. That's going to influence what questions we ask. So if we are using the internet to get people, and there's examples of how Hallmark, Chiron, and GM did this. This is in the American Management Association reading. If we're using web-based recruiting, we're going to get a large pool of people. And so we have to understand that we want to keep our interviews a little more targeted and short. If we're using more of a, like a job website, the ones that were introduced today, then we already have a more targeted group of people. And then we just need to figure out how quickly do we need to find someone, how many people do we need to reach, and do we need somebody who's exempt, like has a high level of education or something? That's pretty much all I need to say about that. Okay, so here are the kinds of questions we'll generally ask during an interview. And in the next part, in part 5, if anybody's watched the videos, we talk about situational, behavioral, and knowledge. Those are the 3 categories. And a situational question, another word for that would be hypothetical. A competency-based question would be behavioral, but we'll talk about them in different terms. So today, let's talk about them using these terms. So a competency-based question is about a skill or a quality that someone has. The kind of skills we're talking about could be the KSAP, knowledge, skills, abilities, and any sort of personality things. But the point of a competency-based questions are that they are real. They are true. They're about your behavior. So a competency-based question, for example, might be, describe a time when a customer was angry at you, and what did you do? It's real. I'm not asking you for a hypothetical, imaginary situation. I'm asking you to describe a real time when this really happened. That's competency-based. So it requires a specific example. Tell me a time when one of your coworkers was acting rude, and what did you do? Tell me a time when a customer was acting rude. Describe a situation in which you felt very proud of the work you did, right? I'm going to ask you for specific situations. And that's what most of the interview usually is. Most of the interview is talking about actual, real, specific situations. Now, some of the interview is going to be open-ended, like tell me about a day at work, or tell me about how you got the job. Something that's very open. I'm not asking you about a specific experience. I'm asking you about, tell me about yourself. If I say, Chandra, tell me about yourself, I already have your resume and I already have your application information. So what do I really want to know? I want to know your verbal and nonverbal skills. That's why I'm asking you these open questions. It's not because I want to see, what do you say about yourself? Oh, I love tennis and I like to watch movies. And I mean, it's okay. That has nothing to do with the job. I just want to see how you talk. Do you say, do you say like, do you say jega? How do you talk? When I ask you a question, do you look down? Do you look up? Do you look outside? Do you look at your watch? Do you yawn? What do you do? How do you behave? That's why we ask an open-ended question. It's not because the answer really matters. It's how you talk that matters. Then we do ask usually at least one hypothetical question, what we would also call a situational question. This is imaginary. In a situation, imagine a situation where you're a manager and your employees always are coming late. What would you do? It's not real. It hasn't happened to you. I'm asking you to imagine. It's hypothetical. So why are we asking someone to imagine a situation? It has not happened yet. So it doesn't really tell me what you would do, because who knows? You could say anything. You could say, oh, if an employee came late, I would definitely sit them down and have lunch and talk about what is wrong. That doesn't mean you'd actually do that. That's just your answer. So I'm not really asking to say, oh, that's wonderful, that's what we're looking for, because who knows if you would really do it. The reason we're asking this is to find out your thought process, your approach. Are you someone who immediately talks about communication, or are you someone who immediately talks about punishment? That's going to tell me something about your style. It doesn't tell me what you'll actually do. The only way to know what you'll actually do is to find out what you really did by asking competency-based questions about your actual behavior. Next is closed questions. A closed question has a very specific answer. How many years did you live in New York? That's a closed, there's an answer. It's not, there's nothing to discuss. It's just when I want additional information. Do you know how to drive? There's a specific answer to these questions. Okay, that's pretty much all the kinds of questions, those 5 kinds of questions. One other thing to be aware of is to make sure that when you conduct this interview, you are taking notes. And the reason that you're taking notes is that if the company is ever sued or the law is involved, they can ask for the notes from the interview. And therefore, we want to make sure that we're always using objective language. So if I say the applicant was attractive, that's subjective, right? That's my opinion. If I say the applicant's appearance is consistent with the employee image desired by the organization, that's not my opinion, that's objective. Okay, let's take, well, we're at about the halfway mark. So let's take a 10-minute break. How does that sound? We're almost done with this chapter. There's a little exercise that we'll do, and then we'll be pretty much done, and then we'll move on to chapter 5. So let's take 10 minutes. We will come back at 9:40. Great. Okay, sorry, it's recording again now. So for anybody who missed the recording, because that was my mistake, we just finished the end of 4, talking about recruitment. And now we're starting 5 and doing the Carter Cleaning Company.
Which question did you want us to answer?
Take a look at number 2, but we'll talk about it together.
Okay.
Okay, have you guys all read it? Let's talk about this a little. So what screening techniques could they use? They've got to deal with two big problems: employee turnover, that's one, and the other is stealing and honesty. So what about employee turnover? Is there any way you can test for who's gonna leave?
Well, I mean, if you look at the employee history, maybe you can see if they have a history of leaving their jobs.
Okay, sure.
Something like that. But after that, I'm not sure.
Any other thoughts? How do we test for this?
Maybe someone who really needs this job.
Okay.
Yeah, like they
maybe
don't have the experience for other jobs. Like this is really important for them.
Okay, but I mean, you're talking about a pretty small group of people, and they need to kind of hire anybody they can.
Maybe they can do the reference checking, like employer can check their background and yeah.
Sure. Unfortunately, that's going to take a lot of time. You know, what we want is a test. So the one possibility would be to check for conscientiousness, to check for personality. Now, with personality, we can call their references. That's going to tell us their work behavior. We can look at their resume. That might tell us their work behavior. We can try to find people who really need the job. Sure, all of those are good ideas. But what we could also do is try to test to find people who have certain traits, such as loyalty. Now, how do we test for loyalty? Well, part of it really is just you can buy tests online, you can use personality tests, you can use the MBTI, and part of your homework will be to take the MBTI if you haven't already taken it. Anybody here take it? Do you know your personality according to the MBTI?
No.
Okay, then you're gonna have to take it because I need you to know. I'm INFJ, or else I'd have to take it too. Maybe I should anyway. It changes throughout your life a little bit. Personalities can change. So, but we can test for loyalty, sure. We can test for the kind of traits that you find important in people by using, generally we'd be using a Likert scale. So a Likert scale, Likert, is when you ask a question that has like 1 to 5 or 1 to 7, and 1 is totally disagree and 5 is totally agree. Those kind of questions are called Likert scale questions. And that's where you'd give people a situation, such as, my best friend said they were sick and didn't meet me for lunch, and I found out they were lying. I do not talk to my friend anymore. Totally disagree to totally agree. We can have lots of questions like that for an internal comparison estimate, which we'll talk about in a moment. And that kind of thing will tell us, how does this person feel about people who are disloyal? It's going to tell us a lot of information about that. We can use that kind of thing for honesty as well, to figure out how are people on the spectrum of how much do they care about honesty. Now, the reason we use an internal comparison estimate is you can't just ask a question once. If I'm interviewing you guys for a job and I say, you know, tell me, Ethan, how important is loyalty to you? Of course he's going to say it's important. Yeah. Right? What's your biggest character flaw? Oh, well, I'm too much of a perfectionist. And, you know, sometimes I stay too late working on the job. I mean, come on, we know what everybody's going to say. But if I ask, and you'll see this in the MBTI, if you ask somebody a lot of the same question in different ways.
You can pick apart kind of and read between the lines.
Sure. Well, if I have 5 questions that all ask about loyalty, and for some of them, I put them all in different places out of 100 questions. So for some of them, you recognize what is the good answer. And you say, oh yeah, I'd be very loyal. But for other ones, you don't answer the same way. And if some of those you said I'd be very loyal and other ones you didn't, I know you're not telling the truth about that. I know you're trying to answer it the right way, but you're not being truly honest. And the more questions that I have that test the same thing, the more of an honest appraisal I can make of whether or not you're telling the truth about that. You'll see when you take the MBTI, it is like 100 questions or something. It's a lot of questions. And you'll notice sometimes our brain can catch it that like, wait a minute, they already asked this before. You know, but sometimes your brain doesn't quite catch it because they try to ask it in a different way. One time it would be about your friend coming late, not coming to lunch and saying they were sick. Another time it would say, imagine you're sick, but not very sick. You just have a headache. Do you stay at home? I would stay at home and tell my boss that I have the flu. Well, that's not honest. You don't have the flu, you have a headache. They're just going to keep asking different questions about you or other people to find out your personality, your traits. And that's really the point of what we want to do in this section, is to understand that when we select our employees, the way we select them is by looking at questions. So, you know, here's a question I talk about on the video, for example. You're facing a project deadline and you can't necessarily finish it on time, but you really have to finish it on time, but you know, and there's no one who can help you. Here are your choices. So everybody read these and I'd like to know which one you would do. A, ask for an extension. B, let the supervisor know you may not meet the deadline. C, work just as hard as you can, get it done. D, try to find different ways to do it. E, hand in what you have so far. F, just do the most important parts. G, tell the supervisor it's unreasonable. It's probably what I would do. H, express your concerns and give them an update. And I, quit the job. What would you do, Ethan?
I would most likely do B, but then also some of H as well. So just like tell them I may not meet it, tell them what's going on, but then I'd work as hard as I could to kind of finish it. It'd probably be a bit of an amalgamation of a couple different answers.
All right, Christine, what would you do?
I would do H, just give them an update and then.
Okay. Chandra?
I would do C.
Anais?
I would do C.
Okay, Bella?
Probably F.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Nicola?
For me, D.
Interesting. Harry?
I think I'll do H.
Jody? Maybe no Jody. Constance? Constance and Jody. All right. Well, you know, even just this one single question could already give us some valuable information if I was interviewing all of you guys, right? Information that I don't get from your resume and I don't get from the interview. Because a lot of times when you ask people questions, they kind of get more honest. You guys are giving me your honest answers, you know, and I can learn a lot from that. So we're going to start by talking about what is testing, what is validity and reliability. So we start out with a little bit of history. Testing didn't become a really big thing until after World War II. And I talk about this in a video, but the reason is during World War II, you had so many new people coming in to fight the war in America, so many new recruits, that the government needed to very quickly find ways to put people in the right category. Some people are suitable for being a mechanic, some people for driving a car, flying an airplane, doing strategy, being infantry, being a communicator, doing linguistics. There are just so many different jobs and they don't have time. This has to be decided right now. And so a lot of different tests were being developed in the 40s for this. Later on, towards the 80s and 90s, testing became less common because it started to be seen as not effective and kind of unfair. But now it's becoming very popular again because of this shortage of skilled labor. I mean, right now is a very unique time in history with the pandemic, but even without that, there's such a need for jobs to have the right people. Every job is competing now with companies around the world as global shipping becomes easier. And with heightened security concerns, you really need the right people. And so testing is becoming more popular again. It's very important because it's about getting the right people. Also, if you're a manager, your performance, which means your salary, your bonus, your benefits, your performance may be measured by the employee performance under you. So as a manager, you really want the right people. This affects your promotions and your salary. The more wrong people you have, the more dysfunctional behavior you have. And dysfunction can destroy a department or potentially a whole business because it's very expensive to hire new people. And if they take up your time and then they cause problems in the office or create negative workplace environments, this can slow down everybody. In addition to this, if you hire the wrong person, you can actually be sued, right? And we talk about this in law class, this idea of negligent hiring, that if you hire someone just because of how they look, or they're in your family, or you want to give them a benefit, or they gave you a bribe or money or something like that, if you hired the wrong person and they actually commit any sort of criminal act, the employers may be responsible because you were the one who hired them. So it's really, really important these days to hire the right person for efficiency, for effectiveness, and for legal reasons. So one of the tests that we talk about in the video is something called the Marshmallow Test. But the question here is, how effective are tests really? So all of you guys took a test to get into university. Do you think that test is a good determinant of academic success? So Christine, what kind of test did you take to get into university? You're muted.
You mean like the high school
Yeah.
final exam? Yeah, the HSC is in Australia.
HSC.
Yeah, the final exam is.
What does
the
that
HSC.
stand for?
Higher school certificate? Higher school certificate, I think.
Maybe school, maybe scholastic. Okay.
Oh, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that test, so I'm not familiar with that test, do you think that test is a good determinant of academic success? People who do well on that test do well in university?
No, I mean, sure, but I think people can change, like their study abilities and stuff can change, and their like academic, like if they, because in our test is like very generalized. So I mean, if they study in university, if they study something very, very specific that they like, they might have a more determination to do well in that specific field, rather than in high school, you just study a bunch of subjects. And yeah, so I don't know, from that exam, I don't think it determines your academic success like entirely. I just think you're able to get into university because of that.
Chandra, what did you take to get into university?
I took a TOEFL test.
Well, you had to take more than just a TOEFL test, right?
Yeah, and also I took ACT test as well. When I was in-
I think I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Oh,
because,
that's like yeah, I've heard of ACT. It's like the SAT sort of.
Yeah, when I was in US, I had to take it when I was graduating the high school.
Okay.
Hey David, sorry, as you can hear around me, the festivities have started. So
Okay. Do you think that test, the ACT, can determine someone's life success?
I not perfectly, but I can say student grade can definitely reflect their future success and their academic success, because it shows how you put your effort into like to acquire certain knowledge, and that's student responsibility as in their position. So
Okay.
I think, yeah, it definitely determines your future. Yeah, not perfectly, but yeah, I think.
How do we define this life success? What does that mean to you, Chandra?
To be like your willingness, your passion towards get not only knowledge, but just in workplace or in school, wherever, you should have your willingness to accomplish something, because in any organization or wherever, they have their aims, they have their goals. So to be a part of that, you should be able to do what you have to do. So I think, yeah, in this competitive society, the first determination of success should be what you can do in your position. So for students, definitely getting a good grade can be a determination of success, I think.
Okay, so success in part is following your passion, also doing what you need to do. Ethan, what is life success? You're muted.
Okay. Yeah. Just in a general term, like what do you?
Yes,
what
I just want to know to you, if someone has a very successful life, what do they have? What does that mean?
That they're able to make enough money or be enough or happy enough in their life that they can take care of themselves. They don't have maybe any kind of mental, emotional issues. They don't maybe need to rely too much on others. I mean, shit happens in life, so sometimes bad things happen, even if you're successful. But yeah, as long as you just
try to avoid
not living in your
the four-letter words, but okay.
Yeah, sorry, I apologize.
Things happen.
Yeah, things happen. Yeah, you don't live in your parents' basement your whole life. Like you can get out and take care of yourself.
That's pretty rude to anybody who lives in their parents' basement, but fine.
I did for a long time. I mean, I'm not hating on it, but it's still, it's nice to be able to have your own place and be
All right,
self-sufficient.
so independence is important.
Independent, yes.
Anything else? Anybody have anything else to add? What is life success? Financial independence. I'm not sure I agree on the lack of reliance on others, but I guess it depends what you're relying on people for.
I mean, asking for money every couple months, or just like being like, oh,
Sure.
need
Sure,
a
you want
handout.
financial
Yeah,
independence.
it's just, yeah,
Anything
I'm
else
not like
that is life success? No? Okay. There are other measures of life success, you know, and the experiment we have that showed us a little about this was called the Stanford Marshmallow Experiment. So this was first done in 1972, and it was an experiment to test about delayed gratification. It was not meant to test success. And here's how it works. A little child, and when I say child, I mean 3.5 years to almost 6 years, so really young. A really young child is given a choice. You can have a marshmallow now, or you can have 2 marshmallows in 15 minutes. Jody, which would you choose? Do you want a marshmallow now or 2 marshmallows in 15 minutes?
Marshmallow now.
So, you know, some of the kids chose marshmallow now, and some of the others chose marshmallow in 15 minutes. And the thing that was really fascinating about it was what the kids did when the ones who chose 15 minutes. What did they do? Because they're kids, you know, they're not really able to hide it. So some of them would like not look at the marshmallow. They would cover their eyes so they can't see the marshmallow for 15 minutes. Some of them would sing songs. One of them fell asleep. Some of them would just turn the other way and try to play with toys. They would try techniques to stop themselves from seeing it or thinking about the marshmallow. So anyway, that was the whole experiment. But then many years later, Professor Michel, he was talking to his daughter, who was one of the children at that time. And he was asking her about some of her friends. They were in high school at this point, or maybe they were in their college, I think. And some of her friends were the same kids from the experiment. And he decided to go back and find out where they were now. And what he discovered was that the children who waited to have the second marshmallow had better, what we call life outcomes. Everything was better. Their SAT scores were generally higher. The college they went to was better. Their job was better. Their salary was higher. Their body BMI, which nobody said, but is definitely a measure of life. You know, their body BMI was lower. They were less likely to smoke cigarettes. They were less likely to be in prison. Just every single measure that we had of anything like life success, the people who waited to have that extra marshmallow had more of that. And it was this sort of amazing discovery that life success isn't measured by your academic achievement or by your personality. One of the things that is actually really critical is what's called willpower. And some people have more and some people have less willpower. And the study of willpower is very, very interesting. But this idea of delaying gratification. Now, what's scary a little about this is we definitely live in a culture with social media and with internet shopping and everything where we as a culture are moving away from delayed gratification and towards immediate gratification. And this is scary for people. This is why this is so important for modern managers to understand the importance of delayed gratification, because immediate gratification, when people don't get what they want right now, they tend to get very unhappy. So we're looking at different tests, right? And the question is, how do we use a test in order to screen or find the right candidates? So tell me, Jody, you said you take 1 marshmallow. Jody, what is this a picture of?
This picture was the same like Miss Mariska yesterday class.
Sorry?
this picture was the same like Miss Mariska class yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. What did they say it's a picture of?
Like this one is like a Batman, maybe.
Batman. Okay. Great. Anybody else in that class yesterday?
Me, but wasn't this kind of draw? It was different, Jody. I think it's the same concept.
Sure. Well,
Almost
there's a bunch of them that we have. I mean, there's lots and lots of them that are different kinds, right?
Yes.
So the idea, this is called a Rorschach test. So then you guys, Nicola, you had this class yesterday. Tell us a little, what are these tests about?
She was talking about the how can I remember me, Georgie.
Jody, can you help him?
You are transferring transference, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
How are you at the class too?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
good.
think these are pictures that she drew herself actually, and she just wanted our like opinions on them.
So tell us, what is transference?
It's like when there's an example of like a girl. It's quite a sad story actually. But when she was like adopted, but her previous parents, I think they like abused her, and so
I don't know what this has to do with this picture we're looking at.
yeah, well, it's transference. So basically, because she got abused, she started taking out her previous experiences on her family.
Okay, but you're talking about psychology right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
You're talking about psychological transference.
Yeah,
yes,
that's it.
Definitely.
Okay. There's a similarity here, but we are talking about human resource management. They're very different ideas. Transference is not a relevant concept here. So, okay, so it's the same Rorschach test, but used for a different purpose. What we're talking about is called projection. These are projective tests. So if Jody says this looks like Batman, what do you think this looks like, Ethan?
To me, it does look like a scary face, kind of like almost like a jack-o'-lantern.
That's a very common answer.
And the eyes there.
A demon face, something like that.
Yeah.
Anybody else see something? That's not what I see.
See like someone standing, like facing backwards, with like wings, like an angel. or
Yeah, you
something.
could say, I was going to say angel could be another popular answer with like wings.
2 hands like this, you know?
Right, so I see angel, but I see 2 angels. To me, this is the head of the angel, this is the hand being lifted, and this is the angel's wing. And there are 2 angels, right? That's what I see. But you know, different people see different things. What does this say about us if you see a scary face versus you see an angel? You know, now I'm not a specialist in this, what people see. Some people, they're classic answers. Some people say a walnut. Some people say a brain. Some people say this is 2 faces. Here's the nose, here's the mouth, here's the eye, and it's 2 faces looking at each other, right? You can see the idea of 2 faces. Here's their body, right? And these are their legs. You know, and you can see it when you're told it. Now, people who often see faces and bodies tend to be people who are good at communication. People who are, that's what they look for. When they see shapes, they see humans. And that's people who are more communicative. People who see things like, a lot of people would say butterfly, insect, right? These kind of things. People who see natural animals have a different, they tend to have a little more empathy. Other people see more conceptual ideas, clouds, kites, things that fly. And those people tend to be a little more conceptual. So the Rorschach test tells us something about your personality because you are projecting. It's similar to transference in psychology. So in psychology, transference is when something that you feel about one person or object or group is transferred to another group. So for example, imagine that when I was a kid, I got hit by a policeman. And now I go outside and I see a group of policemen and I think, I hate those people. That's transference. I don't even know them, but I'm transferring an experience I had when I was young to this other group that has similarities between them. Transference is extremely common. It's one of the reasons that a lot of people express certain fears. You know, the fear of dogs because they were bitten as a child, a fear of pools because they almost drowned when they were a kid in the ocean. Things like that tend to get transferred as we grow up. And there are methods of dealing with that called cognitive reappraisal, pioneered by a guy named Albert Bandurras, who's very, very interesting. So, you know, obviously, it's not reasonable for me to give you grades based on those answers. What about giving you jobs based on those answers? Well, maybe it's a little more plausible. So what we need to understand is what makes a test good or useful. So let's first start talking about the difference between a pre-employment test and employment test, because they are different. So first, pre-employment, that means before you get the job. So generally, when we think about taking a personality test or something like that, this is what we're thinking about. We're thinking about giving people tests before they get the job. So the kinds of tests, there are two things we want. We want to find out people's negative traits, and we want to match people to the job. We're not always looking for positives. It's harder to find positives. It's easier to find negatives. People will be a little more honest about the negatives accidentally. People don't realize that they're showing their negative side. It just comes out. So we can test for skills, we can test for integrity, personality, psychological tests, drug and alcohol, and physical tests, and we'll talk about all of these. But these are the kind of tests we can give someone before we hire them. The reason we want to do this, of course, we want to predict their behavior. We want to minimize bias. We want to find the people who are responsible. We want to find the people who are going to be stars maybe in the future. We also want to protect against these professional applicants, people who are just really good at applying for jobs. Some people are really good at that, but they're not really suitable. And people who maybe need some additional training. Some people don't use these. You know, some people only use employment tests. They'll do an interview first. Whether you choose to do the tests before or after the interview is up to you. Those are pre-employment, before you get the job. But then we also have employment tests. This is where you already work for the company. You already work for the company. Just not good enough. You already work for the company. So why would we give someone a test if they already work for the company? Well, we still want to know your negative traits, your positive traits, and do you match? I mean, that's it. That's what we want to know. The negatives, the positives, any sort of hidden talents or skills, and do you match? Also, to see your career planning for the future. You know, we might not give a Rorschach test before you get the job. That's not really necessary. We might use an MBTI, a personality test, or a DISC profile, or a sentence completion test, or there's so many tests we could use. We might use a Stanford Binet test and find out your IQ. There's so many different things we could find out before you get the job. But now, once you have the job and you've been working here for a while, now maybe I want to know if you're suitable for management. Well, being suitable for management is a very different skill, and I might end up giving you something more like the Rorschach test for emotional stability. So we want to, once you have the job, we want to make sure you match the job you have now. We want to know if you could be more efficient. Could you be a manager? Could you be promoted in this company? And this helps us a lot with succession planning, right? It reduces our training costs. It makes sure our training programs work. So really, when we're talking about giving people pre-employment tests, we're talking about hiring the right people. When we're talking about employment tests, we're talking about promoting the right people. Let's make sure you got that. I feel like I'm losing people. Harry, what's the difference between pre-employment and post-employment tests?
pre-employment test is you do it before you employ them, and post
For
is
what?
afterward.
Thank you. For what purpose?
I can't remember. Sorry.
Hey, Nicola, what's the difference between pre-employment and post-employment tests?
The pre-employment, we want be sure that we are hiring the suitable person, and the employment test is something like, for example, if you need to promote this person to a manager position, so on. So we have to be more specific about his personality and so on.
Good. So one is about hiring, one is about promoting. That's really the difference. And they're very different tests we can give. Christine, should you give people a personality test or some kind of test before entering into a relationship? What about a friendship? Should there be a friendship test?
Not really, but I don't think you need a test. Maybe you just like talk about your values and, you know, all those things. Yeah, for a friendship, I don't think you need a test actually, but you just talk about it, and yeah, you're only friends with people that you like share the same values and all those things. So yeah.
Okay, Jody, do you think there should be any kind of test for friendship or for relationships?
Yeah, they should, like, because whether the relation between the manager and the workers.
Yeah, but I don't mean that kind of work relationship. I mean like a personal relationship.
No.
You know, like, do you think a girl needs to take an IQ test before you would go have coffee with her?
They don't need to.
They don't need to. Okay, that's good. That's open-minded of you. So in fact, one of the reasons, the ways that testing started was a very similar idea. So there was something called the Myers-Briggs Test. And what had happened is there was this woman named Isabel Myers-Briggs, and her daughter was about to get married. Now, Isabel Myers-Briggs, I'm pretty sure Isabel was her name, but she was studying, does anybody know who Carl Jung is? He was a psychologist who was working at the same time as Sigmund Freud. Most people have heard of Freud, right? Christine, you've heard of Freud?
No.
No. Everybody should know who Freud is. But he's a very important psychologist who talked a lot about, he believed that most feelings people had were related to either your gender or sex or things like that. But a lot of the psychology and psychotherapy that exists today came from him. He was a German psychologist. And at the same time, there was another one named Jung. And Jung believed more that things came from dreams and this idea that everybody has a secret self. And so anyway, this woman, Isabel Myers-Briggs, she was studying Jung, because he talks a lot about personalities. And as I said, her daughter was about to get married, and she didn't trust this guy. And she wanted to give her future son-in-law a test. She said, I don't like that my daughter is marrying this guy. I want to give him a test. And she created this test with all these questions to ask him to find out what kind of person is her daughter marrying. And that has become, over the years, the most popular personality test we have in the whole world, the MBTI, which I will ask you to take for your homework. So what are some of the advantages of giving people a test? You can find out so much information about them. You know, so much information that you never get during an interview or from a resume. Things like their honesty or their integrity or their reliability, all of these traits that you get. Also, you find out bad traits, their propensity to steal, their willingness to steal or cheat. It's objective. It doesn't matter if I'm having a good day or a bad day. You all took the same personality test. So it's objective. It has nothing to do with me. And that's very important, because sometimes what if I give you an interview and I'm having a wonderful day, or an interview and I'm having a terrible day? That's going to influence my results. So there are a lot of benefits of having tests. It can protect us against lawsuits, a lot of benefits. But there are also problems. Like, tests predict who might do well, but they don't really predict who will do well. You know, I could give you a test and find out you're suitable for the job, but it turns out you don't get along with the manager. Well, the test didn't predict that. Some people are bad at taking tests. They're just bad at taking tests. It gives them a lot of pressure. Some people don't like tests. You know, sometimes tests are misused because they're not really a part of the specific job. So sometimes there are disadvantages to taking a test. Anytime we want to give people a test, we just need to make sure that we have a good test, that we're giving it to them fairly. And we'll talk about all this throughout. We won't finish it today, but we'll talk about it throughout today and next week. But there are two key things we need for a good test. And that is, we need validity and reliability. So what's the difference for these? So let's say that I use this test again. I go back to the test of that picture, the Rorschach test. Now, Jody said that he thought this looked like Batman. And I think Ethan said he looked like a scary face. Now, I asked Ethan if it looks like a scary face. If I ask you again in a month, Ethan, do you think it will look different?
It could be completely different depending on my mood or the day, or just how it kind of appears to me in that moment.
So then, if that's true, this is not reliable, because I'm not necessarily going to get the same results if I give the test today as if I give the test later. And I need tests to be reliable. They can't give me different results today and a month from today. Reliability is this idea of being consistent. Now, the Rorschach test is not a reliable test, but it's not meant to be. It's meant to be a projective test, which is a different kind of test. But let's say I give you an IQ test. So I give Ethan an IQ test, the standard one, the Stanford Binet IQ test. And you take it and you get a 130, which is a very high score. And then I give it to you again in a month and you get a 95. Well, now we have a huge problem, because those are completely different IQs. And then I give it to you again a month later and you get a 170. Well, that's impossible. Nobody gets 170. And I give it to you. So this test doesn't work because the results are all over the place. They're not consistent. Results for tests must be consistent. It must be the same or equivalent when you're retested. Now, maybe I don't give you exactly the same test. Maybe I just give you a similar test. It doesn't matter. The results should still be about the same. If I'm giving you an honesty test today and an honesty test next month, they should be about the same. You did not become a different person next month. And if the results are very skewed and different, the test doesn't work. It's not reliable. So one way to make sure that a test is reliable, as we said before, is having a lot of different questions that ask the same thing. And when we have different questions that ask the same thing, that is called internal comparison. It's internal because it's inside the test. So some tests like the MBTI does have a lot of questions that are the same to make sure that they're getting a good result. So more than one question that asks the same thing. Ask the same question in more than one way. That's an internal comparison estimate. So I could give you this test today and give you the same test next month. If I do that, that's called retest. That's when I give you the same test next month. Or I could give you a similar test. That's called equivalent form. That's giving you a similar test next month or in 2 months or something like that. But when we're using tests, we have to make sure they're reliable. It's very dangerous to be hiring people or promoting people when the tests are totally different. Now, as I said, that could be different for a projective test. So a common projective test is the sentence completion test. So if I said, a boy was playing basketball and missed the basket, so he, Harry, how would you finish that sentence? A boy was playing basketball and he missed the basket, so he.
So he, I'm not sure.
Don't think
so
about
he-
it, just answer.
So he tried again?
Fine. Chandra, what would you say?
Can
boy-
you repeat the question? Yeah.
A boy was playing basketball, but he missed the basket, so he. Don't think, answer.
So he missed the basket, did you say?
Yeah, he was playing basketball, he threw the ball, but it didn't go in, so he.
He was so frustrated, so he cried over.
I mean, look how different these answers are. You know, but your answers could change next month. So this is not a reliable test. It is an important test, a very common test. In fact, it's a test that we actually use for drug and alcohol sometimes, interestingly. Because with some of these, now you're projecting, you know, certain things about your personality, especially if I can get you to not think and just answer. We're getting a lot more about people's personality. But one of the common questions is to ask about duration. So, for example, if I said, Tom is, and here's a very common question from this test. Tom is at a diner. He plans to, that would be the sentence, and you have to finish it. Now, people who tend to have some problems, it could be emotional problems, it could be drug and alcohol problems, they tend to give very short answers. Like, Tom is in the diner, he plans to eat, or he plans to, pay, like very quick time. Where other people tend to give longer term answers, like Tom is in the diner, he plans to finish his work, which implies that he's going to get up, he's going to leave the diner, he's going to pay, he's going to go outside. They don't need to say all those things because socially they just accept that it's normal to do all these things. There's a lot we can learn from these projective tests, but they're not reliable because I'm not going to get the same answer every time. Depends, like Ethan said, on your mood. It depends on how you're feeling. The next one is validity. So Ethan, remind us, we just said reliability. What is reliability? Oh my God, you're so clearly watching YouTube or something.
I'm not watching YouTube. I'm not watching.
Literally can see the screen light reflected on you. Literally can see it.
I take it as
don't
depending on your
Christine,
answer. Oh, okay.
No, don't. Christine, what is reliability?
Shut up.
Over time, when someone takes a test, do they get the same or similar results?
Good. That's reliability. Is it consistent? Consistent over time. So you take the same test or a similar test over time, do you get the same results? If you don't, it's not a good test. So that's one thing. But let's say that I give you guys a test and you get the same results over time. So it's very reliable. And it asks all these questions. But I'm giving you this test to see if you'll do well in school, and you get a good grade on the test, but you do bad in school. So I give you the test again, you still get a good grade, but you still do bad in school. Well, maybe the test is reliable, but it's not valid. So validity is different. Validity says, does this test actually measure what it's supposed to measure? If this is a test about honesty, does it really measure honesty? If this is a test about doing well on the job, does it really measure that? It might be reliable and you get the same score over time, but is it really the right score? You know, does it predict your job? And this, of course, is really, really critical. So there's two ways, you know, I'm not going to talk about this. You can see it in the video, but, well, okay. But the idea is that in America, at least, they did create this law that says to make sure all tests that are used by the government must be valid, to make sure there's no difference between disparate impact and disparate effect. Here's some words that you're going to see on your coursework. Constance, you hear? Constance or Bella, are either of you guys here? No?
Yes, I am.
Bella, what's the difference between disparate impact and disparate effect?
Sorry, I forgot. And I don't have my notes with me.
Okay, Niccolo, what's the difference?
I have my notes here, but I will just spit out. I think the disparate effect is when you do some kind of discrimination, not on purpose, and the another one is on purpose.
The opposite.
The opposite. No, so sorry. Okay. Yeah, I have it here, but.
But you're right. You're right. Disparate effect is when you do it on purpose. Disparate. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I don't care.
No.
Learn it. So one of them is on purpose. One of them is not on purpose.
This disparate treatment is on purpose. Its effect is accidental.
Okay. Okay. So for validity, we need to make sure that the test is related to the job, and we need to make sure that the test actually does indicate success. So how do we do this? How do we make sure that if you do well on the test, you do well on the job? The problem is, this is going to take us years, literally years, because I have to give you a test today, and then you have to do the job for a while, at least 3 months, 6 months, a year. I have to see how you did. And you, one person, are not enough evidence. So it's going to take me years to give the test to lots of employees, depending on the size of our company, and then validate this test to find out if you did poorly on the test, did you do poorly on the job? So therefore, a lot of tests that we use in HR are tests that have already been validated. We don't usually make our own tests. There are dozens, if not hundreds of tests that you can buy. So we don't really make our own tests, because if I make a test, you could sue me and say, well, I didn't get the job because of this test, but this test isn't valid. And how can I prove that the test is valid? It would take me years to prove that. So we generally don't make our own ones. There are 3 kinds of validity: criterion, content, and construct. So the first one, criterion. Criterion validity is exactly, you do well on the test, you do well on the job. That's it. It says that the test measures job performance. The test measures job performance. Okay, that's what I want you to know for criterion validity. The test measures job performance. Another way to say this, you do well on the test, you do well on the job. That's the most important, right? You do well on the test, you do well on the job. Then the test is very valuable to us. However, there might be problems with this. So one problem with this is this measures, and again, this is a problem with all tests, this measures how you might perform. I'm giving you the test before I give you the job. So I'm measuring how you should do on the job. But will you actually do that well? It depends. It depends on your family. It depends on the economy. It depends on the government. It depends on your mood. It depends on your manager. It depends on so many things. So there's no test that's really perfect. It just measures, will you probably do well at the job? So for example, there was a study showing that college graduates did better as financial advisors than high school graduates. So the test was, if you pass this college entrance test, do you do better as a financial advisor? And that was validated over many years, to try to find out. But that's an example of just finding out if you pass this test or get a good score on this test, does that indicate that you probably will do well on the job? So that's criterion. Another problem with the test is it might not actually be related to the job. And we need to make sure the tests are always related to the job. It has to be, the content of the test has to be related or representative of the job. It has to represent the job. So if I'm giving you an IQ test in order to be a bus driver. Now, if you have a very high IQ, does that mean you'll probably do a good job as a bus driver? Sure, I guess. I mean, it's always good to be smart. Certainly, it doesn't mean you'll do a bad job. Could we prove over years and years and years that if people have a high IQ, they do well as a bus driver? Probably. We could probably prove that. But is it really related to the job? No. You don't need to have like a genius level IQ to drive a bus. You don't need to have a genius level IQ to do most things. So it's not relevant. And if I give an IQ test in order to drive the bus, probably I will be sued at some point by a group of people who didn't pass the test, but they argue this test is not, there's no content validity. There might be criterion validity. You do well on the test, you do well on the job. Look, I say everybody who got 130 on the IQ test, they did well. Okay, there's criterion validity, but that's not enough. We also need content validity to show that it really does represent the job. Finally, we need construct validity. Construct validity is when we're talking about a trait like honesty, integrity, loyalty, trustworthiness, openness, extroversion, like something with your personality. And construct validity is very hard to prove. It's very hard to prove if you do good on this honesty test, then you will be an honest person in our bank. Or if you do well on this loyalty test, then you won't quit working at McDonald's. That's very hard to prove. You might be a very loyal person. You still hate the job at McDonald's and you're going to quit. It doesn't make you less loyal to quit a McDonald's job. So it's very hard to prove construct validity. We don't usually use it. Coming down to the wire. Okay, but we're making good progress. The next thing to talk about this, I'm not really going to talk about. You don't need to worry. I'm not going to ask you about this. You would never have to do this. You know, we buy tests in HR. We don't do this ourselves. It would take you years. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing it yourself, but just understand you can't validate a test quickly. Ethan, who now I trust is paying deeply close attention.
I'm just sitting back. I'm paying attention.
Why can't you validate a test quickly?
It takes time to check the results and then compare the results to the actual kind of.
What do you mean the results? Explain
So
what you mean by
you-
the results.
So an employer, like just someone who takes a test, they answer the questions, they complete the test, but then how they actually interact could be different than the actual job or the test, I mean to say.
Sure, that's correct. So
Yeah.
we can give them the test today. That doesn't take any time at all. But to see if their job performance matches that
Yeah.
is going to take us 6 months minimum. And then we just know that one person. So, okay, we give the test to every single person who works at our company and we wait 6 months. Cool. Now maybe we could say, oh, we have some evidence. But what if we give them a test in another 6 months, another 6 months? So it's going to take us, probably a minimum of 1 year if we have a lot of people. If we're hiring 50 people today, maybe we could validate this in a year. But if we only have 10 people at our company, it's going to take us a while to validate. So you're never going to have to do this yourself. I do want you to understand, here's an honesty test. I won't ask you to take this for homework. I'll give you the website for the MBTI in a minute. I have to find it. Then generalizability. Generalizability is the question of, if I give a test to this group of people, will it work for a different group of people? So if I give a test to Chinese people age 25 to 30, will it work for Americans age 25 to 30? I don't mean language, I just mean, will the test work? Can I give the test to a bunch of people who are doctors and it's a test about honesty, and then give the same test to people who work at McDonald's and never finished high school? Will the test still predict honesty? Those are the best tests. Ones that are, it's not, I shouldn't say the best, that's the wrong thing, because tests are suitable for different groups. But the most impressive tests are the ones that have the most practical value, because you can give them to any group of people. Like the Marshmallow Test when you're 4 years old as a child. It doesn't matter if you're Chinese or American, or you're from the inner city, or you're from the countryside. It makes no difference. It has nothing to do with your genetic or biological background. It's a test of delayed gratification. So that test is very, very high for generalizability. The Rorschach Test, where I just show you one of these pictures and say, oh, does it look like angels or Batman or a face? That's very generalizable. That's going to show your personality. It doesn't matter where you're from, your background, your socioeconomic level, how much money your family has, the color of your skin, doesn't matter. You're projecting your personality onto it. Other tests really don't work for different groups. They're really specific to different groups. So that's generalizability. We do want to be careful and make sure that we're following all the laws. We don't want to discriminate on the test. We need to make sure it's related to the job. We need to make sure that the tests stay private. We need to make sure that we are not discriminating, whether it's an adverse impact or whether it's adverse treatment or effect, whether you're doing it on purpose or not. So using tests, of course, like a strength test when it's not required, an IQ test when it's not required. All of these things could be bases for discrimination claims. I have a little activity if I want to do it. Sure, we could take this moment. We have 5 minutes left, and let's do a little activity. We'll stop the share. So we'll stop here, and let's do this little activity. So let me send it to you. This is a role play, so I'm going to put you in 2 groups here. Okay, so you can download this role play exercise. And as you see, there are really 3 people here. So there's Ken, there's the human resource manager, who doesn't have a name, and there's an older employee who doesn't have a name. Only Ken gets a name. So Ken is 24. So I'm going to put you in two groups. So one group will be, let's say, well, I'll put you in groups. You can decide. One of you is Ken. Ken is this young person. You're the HR manager. You do not want to lose this person. Very good, just started, right out of college, great earner. But he's coming late and leaving early every day. He's doing all his work. His work is done. His numbers are great. He's making the sales, but he's breaking the rules. But you don't want to lose him. The older employee is angry. This is unfair. Why does this young guy get to come late and leave early? But the old guy, he needs that time. He doesn't finish his work early. So he wants everybody to follow the rules. They don't want to work on a team together. So I want you guys, the HR manager, fix this problem. Tell me what you will do. I'm putting you into two groups. Okay. I know I only gave you a few minutes, but I don't want to go too late. Did you got anybody solve the problem? Any HR manager find a solution?
Time was not enough.
Yeah, not enough time.
I was just about to give an
thoughts?
Oscar-winning performance as the manager.
Who did? Sorry.
I was just about to give just a top-notch.
What would you have done? What would have been your
manager?
What would have been your recommendation?
Well, it's pretty much just like, yeah, you just have to. I will talk to this young Ken. I've heard that he leaves work early and arrives late. His work is good, but as an employee from our company, has to understand the hours and that he should not be committing any time fraud.
So if I was Ken, I'd say, okay, I'm going to quit. There's another company that's offered me more freedom, and they respect the sales and the work I'm doing. And why should I sit here? Just tell me, HR manager, why should I sit here when my work is done?
Well, crap. Just you have to be part of. I don't like your attitude. You can no.
I think it's much easier.
Yeah, it's about finding like a line, just about being like you want to join the work culture, and there's like, I understand that you finish your work early, but like you show huge potential for our company, and we're happy to have you. It's just.
I think that's important. I think that's a good point.
Slighted that you finish your work early.
Here's what I'd probably say.
Jump in and help, or yeah.
I'd say, there actually is a very real difference between being 24 and being 42. And there are a lot of things that a 24-year-old recognizes as true because they've experienced them, and recognizes as not true because they haven't experienced it yet. And one thing that is true is the time in which you finish your work is not the only reason that you get promoted. So earning is one aspect of a job, but it's not what gets you promoted. It's what retains you. It's what gets you your bonus. It's what gets you your commission, but it's not what gets you promoted. So the question is, what do you want here? If you just want your commission, okay. So I probably would allow you to come late, leave early, just get your work done. But understand, your promotability is going to be shot because you're not really being a team player. Yeah. If that's what you want, then that's something. But this other guy, he's been with us for a long time. He's demonstrating certain qualities that are not related to how quickly he gets the job done. And yet those qualities are extremely important to us. We don't want somebody becoming a senior vice president and then quitting. So there's more, there's more at play here. Okay, good. Last thing I just wanted to give you is your homework. So it is on the end of the slide, just so you know. I just got it and put it there. So you'd have to go to download the chapter 5. Oh no, I want to go back. No, that didn't work. Anyway, it's at the end of chapter 5. Let me just do that. Here we are. This is the Young Typology Test. It's only 64 questions, and this is the website. You just go to this website, click on it, and the questions have like it's a Likert scale. So it's a big yes, small no, big no. That's the way it's done, or maybe it's reversed, but it's like that. Like definitely agree, a little bit don't agree, definitely don't agree. That's kind of what the big versus small yes and no. So take that for homework and learn a little bit about your personality type. Okay, so that's it. Any questions? No, good. So I kept you guys for a long time. Christine, I'm going to make you the host. Oh, no, I did that wrong. Okay. Because I know you're all definitely going to hang out here for a really long time. Okay, you're the host. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you.